Despite talk of an olive branch, more tariffs are here as the Bank of Canada weighs in on the trade war. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The answers you need
from the people in the know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Like a game of tariff whack-a-mole. One day there are no tariffs, another day there are threats of even higher tariffs. Some days bring promises of counter tariffs that are then taken away the next day. It's been an eventful week so far in the trade war. There are tariffs in effect now for Canadian exports of steel and aluminum to the United States. It's a 25% tariff, and it's being levied by the Trump administration on all countries, not just Canada. But 25% is half of what Donald Trump was threatening to do. He had threatened to double those tariffs to 50% because of Ontario Premier Doug Ford's decision to impose a 25% surcharge on Ontario's electricity exports to the United States. But then Premier Ford suspended that surcharge following a conversation he had with the U.S. Treasury Secretary Howard Lutnick.
Secretary Lutnick has sent out an olive branch to us to come down and immediately meet with him, meet with the whole trade administration, and discuss the future. Rather than waiting till April the 2nd, threats going back and forth, tit for tat, I've agreed to suspend temporarily, and we always have that tool in our toolkit, until we sit down over the next day or two. I'll be heading down to Washington along with Dominic LeBlanc, and we'll have a good discussion.
For his part, U.S. President Donald Trump called Doug Ford a strong man, but then continued to claim that Canada has been treating the United States very unfairly.
Already Canada, and I respect very much. As you know, there's a very strong man in Canada who said he was going to charge a surcharge or a tariff on electricity coming into our country. He has called and he said he's not going to do that. Okay, he's not going to do that. And it would have been a very bad thing if he did. And he's not going to do that, so I respect that. But we were just informed that he's not going to do that. Look, we've been treated very unfairly by Canada. We've been treated very unfairly by Mexico. But we've been treated very unfairly by every country all over the world. The European Union is horrible, horrible. And we're going to get it back.
As for what Canada will do next, Premier Ford will meet in Washington with Howard Lutnick. Dominic LeBlanc, the finance minister in the federal government, will also be there. And Canada is retaliating with $30 billion worth of counter tariffs. Some officials in the Trump administration are claiming victory after Premier Ford's reversal on the electricity surcharge. This is White House senior counselor Peter Navarro.
So, what happened was the Premier of Ontario, a province of Canada, independently decided to put a surcharge on hydroelectric power to the U.S. of 25%, made some very provocative statements. The president is not going to stand for any of that. And cooler heads prevailed. I mean, as soon as you look at the fight itself, I mean, a 25% surcharge on electricity sounds like a big deal to America. But when you parse it out, it only affected 3 states, Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. It was a nothing burger totally for Michigan and Minnesota, and a little tiny burger for New York. And this guy's firing these big cannons at us, and he got a bazooka back at it.
There are also some questioning whether people in Trump's orbit even understand how tariffs work. Take, for example, the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, who is being widely mocked for claiming tariffs on imports into the United States are a tax cut for the American people.
Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people. And the president is a staunch advocate of tax cuts. As you know, he campaigned on no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security benefits. He is committed to all three of those things, and he expects Congress to pass them later this year.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
They
don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press.
I bet she does. To try and help the Canadian economy weather the tariff storm, the Bank of Canada lowered its trend-setting overnight interest rate today by 25 basis points. That brings the central bank's rate down to 2.75%. Speaking in Ottawa today, the Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem warned tariffs will hit the Canadian economy, jobs will be lost, and the longer it goes on, the more inflation becomes a risk.
The Canadian dollar is depreciating. Anything you import is more expensive as a result. Retaliatory tariffs add an extra charge on anything coming in from across the U.S. border. That increases costs. Businesses are they're also looking for new suppliers to avoid tariffs. They're looking for new markets. That entails costs. There could well be supply chain problems. Businesses are holding more inventories to try to manage those things. These things all have costs. Somebody has to pay for those costs, and ultimately they get passed through to the consumer.
All the tariff talk has created volatility in the stock market. Before today's trading, the Dow Jones Industrial Average had lost more than 1,000 points in the last 5 days. But right now, a fairly muted day on the stock market. Small losses, small gains all around. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down about 105 points. NASDAQ up on the day by about 200 points. The TSX trading slightly higher, up 114 points, while our Canadian dollar 69.45 cents US. And despite that cut from the Bank of Canada in its overnight lending rate today, the loonie is actually trading higher by about 18 basis points. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Bank of Canada cut interest rates today. There were many questions about what our central bank plans to do about the trade war. Richard Forbes is with us today, principal economist of economic forecasting at the Conference Board of Canada. Thank you for taking the time.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Why did the Bank of Canada cut rates today?
Yeah, there was really two kind of overarching themes to why the bank cut rates today. The first was, the Canadian economy is still looking a little bit sluggish. It finished 2024 on a high note, but, the labor market figures for February came in a little bit disappointing. So on that front, the bank, went ahead with kind of the current plan to cut interest rates. And then, of course, the second, maybe more bigger part for the talking points is the threat of tariffs. So the bank is clearly showing caution. They're worried about how the Canadian economy is going to perform if these tariffs are implemented or even if the threat persists. So that further encouraged the rate cut we saw today.
What did the Bank of Canada say today about what the economic impact will be from tariffs?
Yeah, the bank, it didn't mince words. They're very concerned about the possibility of inflation reigniting from tariffs due to import prices going up from a weaker Canadian dollar, and also the weakness of the Canadian economy as a whole, which would hurt job creation, hurt people's incomes. So there is no really mince of words there. The Bank of Canada is clearly concerned, as they should be, about this threat.
What can the Bank of Canada do? Because the suggestion seems to be its role in limiting the impact of tariffs on the economy is limited, and that it may be more a fiscal policy situation, that it would be more up to governments of the day to limit the impact than, say, the central bank. What's your assessment there?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're thinking. So the Bank of Canada, if the tariffs were to go ahead, we could see higher inflation, and that would encourage the bank to raise interest rates to get inflation under control. But then on the other hand, that would hurt growth in the Canadian economy because borrowing rates would go up again. So there's really, the Bank of Canada would be kind of in a bind. And like you mentioned, the impact would have to be softened through fiscal policy, through different government stimulus programs, which we're still waiting to see some of the details on. But we do anticipate to have more clarity in the coming weeks.
Okay. So it's a rate cut today, and there have been a series of consecutive rate cuts from the Bank of Canada. What's this, the seventh one in a row?
Yeah, that's right. It's the seventh one in a row since June last year.
Okay. So should Canadians get used to that, more interest rate cuts, or could interest rate increases be in the offing because of the inflationary threat from tariffs and counter tariffs?
We're thinking that interest rates will still come down again by another quarter point in April. And then the bank is probably going to do a bit of a wait-and-see approach to see if inflation does reignite with these tariffs. Then there is a possibility of rate hikes again. But as of right now, we're thinking they'll still come down in April and kind of remain flat after that time. But of course, there's a huge cloud of uncertainty surrounding any projections today.
Okay. The Canadian dollar is kind of hanging around 69.5 cents US. It kind of depends on the day and what President Trump says and what Canadian officials say in response to whatever Donald Trump says on any particular day. What's your forecast at the conference board for the loonie?
Yeah, we think the loonie will remain kind of in this range. It might, if the tariffs were to go ahead, we're thinking it would go down to probably around 66 cents. Obviously there'd be weaker demand from the U.S., but we do think there is at least an opportunity to export our goods to other countries, especially in the natural resource sector. So that should help the Canadian dollar hold up a little bit on that front. But it would still go down considerably by, a few cents from that. So we'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the chances of a recession?
If the tariffs go ahead as planned, the 25% that Mr. Trump is threatening, then we're thinking the Canadian economy goes into a recession immediately.
Immediately. Okay. All right. Thank you. I wish we could end on a cheerier note, but that is our time today. I really appreciate your insight today.
Yeah, I wish it was a better story, but the positive is the U.S. has dialed back some of the measures recently. We saw potash, the tariffs plan for potash decrease, so there is some hope still, but the situation isn't looking too bright.
Right. I guess everybody's looking ahead to April 2nd now, right, Richard? What happens
absolutely.
April 2nd?
That'll be the big day to watch.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Richard Forbes is principal economist of economic forecasting. He is at the Conference Board of Canada. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with David Smith on a Wednesday on Now You Know with Rob Snow. And if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, there's a great new mobile app that will help you hear our show when you want to listen live, listen to the podcast. It is called the Seeker app, spelled Seekr. All kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports. And you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled Seekr. And Now You Know with Rob Snow is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. or wherever you get your podcasts. And so is the Big Story podcast. David's been working on that. What have you been working on, David?
Yeah, listeners are interested. Checking out today's Big Story podcast. I did an episode with a regular contributor to this show, Rob, Nick McRoberts from Hill and Knowlton, excellent liberal strategist. And we dove into what's next for Mark Carney. The Trudeau era for the Liberal Party has ended. The Mark Carney era begins. When will the election be? What will be the winning message from Carney's Liberals? How are they going to defend against all of these attacks from the Conservative Party? His history of supporting the carbon tax, his conflicts of interest, this business of moving Brookfield's headquarters while he was chair of the board. Lots of material there. That's today's Big Story podcast.
All right, look forward to listening to that. On the Seeker app, spelled Seekr. So, Trump, 51st state, tariffs, his obsession with Canada. I guess that's been making for decent material for the late night TV host. What's been going on, David?
Yeah, we love hearing Americans talk about us, right? So let's run through a few of these. Jimmy Kimmel on ABC, Ford and Ontario electricity imports to New York, where these shows are filmed. Obviously was local news for New York City yesterday. It made its way into all of the big late night shows. So Jimmy Kimmel on ABC.
Another episode of How the Hell Do We Make This Funny? It's, I wonder if they had a comedian on the Titanic. It's, do you know Guillermo?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah. It's been 7 weeks since Donald Trump took office, and so far it has been much worse than I think anyone thought it would be. We're friends with Russia now. We're dumping the Department of Education. We're forcing ourselves on Canada. The tariff of Nottingham is on quite a tear. Today, Trump announced an additional 25% tariff on all Canadian steel coming into the United States. There he goes again, trying to stop the steal. It's...
I see what he did there.
And on CBS, Stephen Colbert was also talking about Canadian electricity.
Ontario announced a 25% tax increase on electricity exports to the U.S. And that's a shame, because Canadian electricity is clean energy. It's powered by pure, natural beaver in a big wheel. Obviously, it's not. That's made up, obviously. Sometimes it's a moose. Obviously, he's threatening to take Canadian tariffs to 50% in response. And all this economic chaos has got to be a shock to MAGA voters, because during the whole campaign, every rally, Trump made this promise.
Starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again.
Yes, day one. Make America affordable again. Or and soon, that is the sound you'll make when you open your electric bill.
And on NBC, Jimmy Fallon, he came out for his opening, and then they abruptly cut the lights in the studio.
Welcome to The Tonight Show. Thank you for being here. Oh, before we get started, I just want to say how much we love our neighbors in Canada.
And the lights come back on.
That was close. Thank you, Doug Ford.
Well, it's good to have friends, even if you have to stay up late to see them, I guess. The Newsday panel is coming up next. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio. The Newsday panel.
Yes, time for our Newsday panel. Ariella Kimmel is president of Winston Wilmot. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Congratulations on the new posting.
Thank you very much.
I understand there are congratulations for Jordan Piquet as well. who I had down today as senior consultant at Blue Sky Strategy Group, but now he's been promoted too. You got a bump up. You're the vice president now at Blue Sky Strategy Group.
That's right, Rob. Thanks so
Holy
much.
cow. You
No,
see, you come on this show. You come on this show and you get a promotion. Like, isn't that wonderful? In the meantime, David and I are still here, and we're just the same people we always were. But no, look, I thank you for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. There's so much to talk about, and it's, certainly shaping up to be a busy couple of months ahead. And it would seem these days there's a poll for everyone. I mean, if you think the Liberals are winning, there's a poll for you. If you think the Conservatives are still in the lead, there's a poll for you too. And you get a poll, and you get a poll, and you get a poll. And even the pollsters are fighting on social media about their polling results. But one thing is clear. The race is closer than it was before. I think we can all agree on that. It's not a 20-point lead for the Conservatives anymore. Maybe it's cut in half if the Conservatives are leading at all. Given that's the case, how do you think the Conservatives are feeling right now? If you could be a fly on the wall in the Conservative headquarters or in the war room, you think they're confident? You think they're nervous? You think they're scared to death, hiding under the bed, shivering in the fetal position? Just what do you think the mood is in the Conservative war room these days? Ariella, what do you think?
Look, I think, as you said, the race is tighter for sure, but we know campaigns matter. So I don't picture anyone in the CPC war room right now in the fetal position. I do think they're prepping, and I think there's a feeling of confidence. And also, at that point, money does matter in a campaign. And we do know that fundraising-wise, the Conservatives are ahead. But the other reality is that Carney is untested on campaign trail and was bubble wrapped in the leadership. Like, they can't shield him the same way from the public during a general. And, he really wasn't scrutinized, and he hasn't really participated in actual debates other than what happened during the leadership, where we're just them going, I agree, but, and I agree, and. So, I think he's also been shown to be a terrible communicator. So all this combined, I think, gives a lot to the Conservatives to feel okay about.
Okay. Jordan, what do you think? What do you think the mood is like in Conservative land these days?
I think they're anxious to get going. I mean, they've been ready for this election since last spring. They have the most candidates nominated. To Ariel's point, they have the most money in the bank. They want to get out and spend it. They want to take the message that they've been out testing for the last number of months, last couple of years, actually, to that matter, and really put it out to Canadians to decide. It's been too long. Parliament's been shuttered. As we know, Conservatives love being in the House and having robust debates on issues. So I think they're anxious to get back at the campaign trails. And I mean, they already are. If you look across the country, more candidates are just getting nominated. They just nominated the mayor of Kingston the other day to hopefully take that seat away from the Liberals. And so, no, they're anxious to get going. To Ariel's point, it was a very sleepy leadership race. Coronation, I guess, that installed Mark Carney, and they want to take him on face to face in a debate with Pierre Poilievre in English and French, and I think after we get through the first couple of weeks of the campaign, you'll start to see the Liberal numbers softening. And let's not forget that the Conservative numbers haven't actually significantly dropped hard, according to maybe any poll, unless you listen to Liberal Frank Graves. And who knows what Kool-Aid he's on or whatever else he's drinking. But it's not some dismal drop of the Conservative fortunes. They're still in a very good poll position, and let's bring on the campaign, I think, is what they're thinking.
Let me ask you, some people are wondering what's going on with Ford and Poilievre. I mean, Ford just won a big election being Captain Canada and wrapping himself in the flag. And the Conservatives would like to win everywhere Ford Nation won. If they could do that, they'd have a very good chance at winning it all. But you never see Ford and Poilievre together. Yesterday on cable news, Ford called Mark Carney a super smart guy. He tweeted his congratulations to Mark Carney for winning the Liberal leadership, and he posted another picture today of Doug Ford, Mark Carney having breakfast or lunch or brunch in Etobicoke and talking things over. Doug Ford, Mark Carney, not Doug Ford and Pierre Poilievre. Is there something to be said for that? I mean, does Doug Ford want Mark Carney to be the prime minister and not Pierre Poilievre? Ariella, what would you say?
I don't think that's necessarily the case. I do think that Ford is known to, he is the ultimate populist, and not in like his political sense, but he just wants everyone to like him. And this has always been him, right? Whoever is the leader, whoever is, he's not going to be battling with him. He's not Danielle Smith. He's not Jason Kenney. He's not going to have that same friction. And it's not natural for him. You know, think about during COVID when he was like out being like Chrystia Freeland's best friend and I'm her support person. And like, you know, and it's not fake. Like they were legitimate. He legitimately would say it on private calls with people. So I think that this is just for his personality. It's not necessarily him saying I would prefer Carney to Pierre. You know, it'll be interesting to see during the campaign if any of the current MPPs, especially those who had ties to the CPC from like the Harper era, do come out and help. But you didn't see any CPC candidates really out there helping in the MPPs candidates. So I think it's just, I don't think it's necessarily love loss. I think it's just the way things are going right now and the way Doug Ford is as a person.
Okay. What do you think, Jordan? Is there a split here between Poilievre's team and Ford's team?
I don't think there's any sort of hard split. I think to Ariel's point, there's a couple different personalities perhaps at play. But let's remember kind of how things are right now. I mean, Ford is chair of the Council of Federation. He's got to be out there up front promoting Team Canada and kind of the spokesperson for all that. Has worked closely with the Trudeau government on a lot of things, and it's Pierre Poilievre's job to be the opposition leader and the attack dog against government policies and perhaps suggesting alternative approaches. So I think you will still find at the grassroots level a lot of the same door knockers, sign people, volunteers will be out helping out on all campaigns. But yeah, I think it could just be some personal differences. I don't think you're going to see them campaigning against each other. But I think, you'll see some MPPs helping in some close local races, but I wouldn't read too much into it.
Okay, we'll be right back. It's our Newsday panel. I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
With our Newsday panel, Ariella Kimmel, president of Winston Wilmot's with us, along with Jordan Paquette, vice president, Blue Sky Strategy Group. One thing for conservative parties, they love to eat their own. So let's say Pierre Poilievre can't bring it home and doesn't win the next election. Could that spell his demise as the leader of the Conservative Party? Would the knives be out for Poilievre? Would he be one and done? Ariella, what do you think?
We do like to eat our own. That is true, and we've obviously seen that play out in the last few elections cycles. But I do think that it would be ultimately it's a mistake we often do. It just creates a cycle. People who are unknown have to rebuild, have to bring in their people. It doesn't give them a chance. And at the same time, I don't think we're currently in a position where someone has the power or the platform to take the knives out. It's kind of unlike what happened with O'Toole, where Pierre's people really did have that power and ability, and then the convoy really gave them a spark to be able to make it happen. So I hope not, just because I do think it's not a winning strategy by any means.
Okay, not a winning strategy. What do you think? Is this Pierre Poilievre's one and only shot to win an election as the leader of the Conservative Party? What do you think, Jordan?
No, I don't think so. Conservatives will give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, anything short of a completely dismal result where they lose half the seats and are gone, which I don't think is even completely in the cards whatsoever. But no, let's look at what he's actually done over the past year for the conservative movement. I mean, he's got rid of Trudeau, perhaps a little too quickly for some conservatives' own liking. But I mean that was the goal. Forced the carbon tax to be axed. I mean, the main messages he's been talking about has really punched through. So he's been an incredibly effective leader. Not to mention the Conservative Party is incredibly unified. Pierre brought in way more memberships into the Conservative movement, built probably the biggest party movement in Canadian history, and
raised a lot of money.
will raise tons of money, continuing to come in. Caucus is very united behind him. All the people in key positions in the party are very unified. I mean, it is Pierre's party right now, so it will be his decision. There's nobody waiting in the wings to kind of step into the job that Conservatives are kind of looking beyond Pierre, who it could be. He's young, he's effective, he's got tons of energy. So no, I would expect he's around for a while.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if it's, instead of being more like the last two elections for the Conservatives under O'Toole and Scheer, maybe, I mean, let's face it, some of these polls still have the Conservatives winning a majority government. Anything is possible right now. It could unfold in any number of ways, but maybe this is more like 2004. Harper didn't win that election, but they didn't toss him out and went on to win the next election, albeit with a minority government. Maybe it's more similar to the election of some 20 years ago than it is to the one of 2 years ago. What do you think, Jordan?
Absolutely. I mean, we're up against a different opponent at this point. I mean, Paul Martin was seen as this savior to the business community. Everyone said he was a juggernaut, was unstoppable. Similar Laurentian talking heads are perhaps saying the same thing now about Mark Carney. But yeah, Harper was able to hold him down to a minority. He didn't pick up a ton of seats from a movement. But I mean, at that point, merged two parties together. In Pierre's case here, he kind of reunited the Conservative Party together, and definitely has a command of that now too. So and
sorry, Jordan, maybe Ariella, it depends on what the outcome of the election looks like, and if it is a loss for the Conservatives, just how stable does say a Liberal government appear to be? I mean, if it's a majority Liberal government, it's a different story, but if it's some kind of slim, maybe even fragile Liberal minority government, who knows, right? You would have to be ready.
You have to be ready. So if it's a fragile, Liberal minority government, I would highly, highly, highly doubt that anything would happen with Pierre and they would continue, moving forward as a party. And Jordan's pointed out, Pierre really owns this party, and it's similar to the, Harper era where the caucus was very loyal to Harper. The party supported Harper. There was, no internal issues that we saw, I think, kind of come out post-Harper era. It feels like the party has gone back to being very united, very solid, and really is like the big tent that, Harper had created. So I do think that, we're seeing support come from different places and different areas with Pierre. Private sector unions are coming behind it in some places. He's doing a lot more with, blue collar workers and the labor force. And I do think that that's going to play a big role here.
Yeah. Plus young voters, new Canadians as well, kind of a new Conservative coalition, if you will. Okay, when we come back, I mean, there is some talk about Mark Carney that maybe he should assemble a wartime cabinet. I don't see that happening myself, but we'll ask our panelists whether they think that's realistic. When we come back, I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's our Newsday panel here on News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Here with Jordan Paquette, Vice President, Blue Sky Strategy Group. Ariella Kimmel is President at Winston Wilmot. What do you think of this idea? Mark Carney assembles a wartime cabinet. In other words, cabinet ministers from all the parties, not just the Liberal Party. What do you think the chances are of something like that, Ariella?
I think they're very, very slim, especially since they're planning to pull the trigger to an election. You're not going to put your opponents around a table. I do think, obviously he's going to swear in his own cabinet. I think it should be, and hopefully it's a much smaller one, as it's essentially a placeholder temporary one. And obviously, I think important to have people around the table who have been involved in the ongoing negotiations and the tariff issues. But I don't think, putting Elizabeth May at the table is going to help us Canadians in the tariff war.
Yeah. Like, I'm not seeing Jagmeet Singh, Elizabeth May, Charlie Angus, and Pierre Poilievre being unveiled in the next few days as ministers in a Mark Carney cabinet. I mean, I sure
hope definitely not.
I think the very idea is patently absurd. It's borderline delusional. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, agreed. Look, I think he is going to bring in people from outside of caucus and and people that don't necessarily have a seat in the House of Commons to try and say, like, look, I'm a businessman. I can bring in people from the other community. But yeah, for bringing in people from other parties, as much as Jagmeet Singh would probably love it because he's likely now going to lose his own seat, and as much as Elizabeth May would love to be at the table of decisions, it's just not going to happen. And any conservative that would ever take a post like that can count out any future in the conservative movement pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So no, I don't see it happening.
Very quickly, Chrystia Freeland is actually going to be feted tonight at an event in New York. She's going to receive some sort of freedom fighter award. But let's face it, her performance in the Liberal leadership race, I mean, it's almost embarrassing. She was outvoted in her own riding by a 10-to-1 ratio. What do you see ahead for Chrystia Freeland, who's been, an MP in the Liberal Party for 12 years, helped build the party, helped take the party from third place to majority government, but is she now in the twilight of her political career? What would you say, Ariella?
I think you're really much nicer than I am when you say it was almost embarrassing. I think it was so embarrassing that she got only 8% of the vote and she couldn't even win her own riding. I mean, her political career is over.
It's over.
We thank her for her service of helping, get Trudeau to step down as leader and to make what happened, happen. But, she didn't perform well in the leadership. She barely performed at all. Obviously, there were many forces against her with a target on her back for what happened. And there was a, leadership team behind Carney and those same people that were with Trudeau. But, it really didn't work for her at all. And I think that means she's done.
She's done. Okay. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, her days as a prominent MP and minister are certainly behind her. I think into New York she can restart her career there that she had done before, and that's probably what she'll do. I can't see her. I can't see Carney bringing her back into cabinet. If anything says he wants to move on and change and be different than Trudeau, bringing back his deputy prime minister and finance minister likely wouldn't be a good look.
Okay, that is our time for this week. I thank you so much. All the best to you. Congratulations again on your new roles within your organizations. That's wonderful stuff. Bye-bye. Well, that's our Newsday panel. That's Ariella Kimmel, president now of Winston Wilmot, and Jordan Paquette, who is vice president at Blue Sky Strategy Group. So just ahead, right after the latest breaking news, it's Talkback. The midweek edition of Talkback, 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. Hot topic today, and we hope to hear from you. Hope you'll join the discussion here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic is the Trump threat and what you're doing at home. And here are some questions for you to kind of get the conversation started today. Given Donald Trump's threats to use economic force against Canada, given his use of tariffs, there are tariffs now in effect on Canada, given all of his talk about wanting to make Canada the 51st state, what are you doing? What are you doing in your own personal life to respond to these threats? Are you making different choices? Are you making different buying choices for example? Are you really shunning American-made products? Are you really canceling traveling plans to the United States? Just what have you done, or what do you plan on doing? And if you haven't done any of that, why haven't you done any of that? If you are still shopping the same old way you always shopped and you're not looking at labels, why is that? If you were planning to go to the United States sometime soon on a trip and still plan to follow through with those travel plans and visit the United States, why? Why is that? Is it because, for example, you don't think it matters? Or that it wouldn't have any impact, or it wouldn't change anything? We have talked so much recently about the back and forth between our two countries and all the things that Donald Trump has said and all the people around him and all of his supporters and all the things that they have said. And we've talked a lot about how that's impacting our own country and what Canadian politicians are saying and what Canadian politicians are doing and how important it is. You know, they tell us we all have to be part of Team Canada. Are you part of Team Canada? Are you part of Team Canada? We've talked a lot about how this has upended our domestic politics. This played a role in the Ontario election. There's no doubt about that. And the re-election of Captain Canada, Doug Ford. And it's going to play an even bigger role in the upcoming federal election. I don't think there's any doubt about that, which by most accounts a very close race again. But today we kind of want to come at it from a different angle and kind of bring it down to the household level, the personal level, and hear from you about what you're doing, what you see other people doing as a proud Canadian to stand up to this administration in the United States that seems to have an obsession with picking on Canada. Just what are you doing? What decisions have you been making? What decisions have you made? And if you haven't done anything, why haven't you done anything? Is it because you don't think it would matter, or is there some other reason? Join the discussion. Our call-in line is 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. I mean, I can't count the number of stories that have been in the news just in recent days about what I think you could call economic nationalism. There are almost too many to count. The polling firm Leger has a new survey out today. Canadian pride on the rise. Says 86% of the country proud of the country, although it would appear that older Canadians are more proud of Canada than younger people. I don't know what you read into that. Even in Quebec, being proud of Canada is on the rise. I guess that's bad news for the separatists, but that's just one story in the news today. All kinds of stories about new mobile apps being developed to help Canadians who want to make sure they're really buying a Canadian-made product. Here in Ottawa, along one commercial district, the local BIA has more than 100 banners along the street, and it says, "Shop Canadian, shop Canadian." The Moosehead Brewery has released what it calls a presidential pack. A presidential pack. 1,461 beers to help Canadians get through the next 4 years of the Trump presidency at a pace of one beer a day. Might not be enough for some. And there are strange stories, I have to say, of, for example, people going to Costco, shunning American goods at Costco and buying Canadian products, even though they're at Costco, an American retailing giant headquartered in Washington State. There are all sorts of stories. Canadians en masse canceling travel plans to the United States. StatsCan would seem to back that up. It says day trips by Canadians by automobile to the United States fell by about a quarter last month compared to the month before. Are you partaking in any of this economic nationalism? That's what we want to know. And if so, what's going on at your place? What have you done? And if not, Why not? Aren't you part of Team Canada, eh? Let's kick it around for a couple of hours. Our call-in line, 1-833-668-2577. If you have never called before, just mention that to the call screener. We'll make your call a priority. 1-833-668-2577. This is Talkback. I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And I said, then you should be a state. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like.
The president has said it. The best way to actually merge the economies of Canada and the United States is for Canada to become our 51st state.
Canadians would be better served economically, militarily, if they were to become the 51st state.
I would love to see Canada be the 51st state.
It would be very beneficial for the Canadian people to be the 51st state of the United States.
Canada should honestly become our 51st state.
So because of all of that, Canadians don't like that, and there are all kinds of reports about economic nationalism by Canadian pride, talking about what you're doing, in your own household. That's our topic for today on Talkback. What purchasing decisions have changed for you because of Donald Trump's treatment of Canada? Have you made any changes? If you haven't made any changes, why not? 1-833-668-2577. Bill up first in Calgary today. Hello, Bill.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, Bill. How are you?
Not too bad. It's been a busy couple of days, hasn't it?
Oh, sure thing.
I enjoyed your previous guest that you were hosting there. It sort of reaffirmed a lot of the things that I was thinking. But
okay. Thank you.
As far as doing the Canadian thing, well, I'm not quite retired yet, Rob, and I don't buy a lot of things anymore, so I don't really think about it too much. Other than food, I suppose, is really where it only would affect me. And I think that I'm on a carnivore diet, so it's not like I'm rushing out buying fruits and vegetables from the United States. Although I was disappointed to see there was no avocados in the Sobeys the other day. But I think that I
never
think
thought you were. I never thought Bill. I don't really know Bill, but he's called many times. I never thought you'd be an avocado guy. I have to.
Oh, definitely. I love my avocados, man. But I thought it was quite funny yesterday watching the back and forth. I was 100% certain that Doug Ford would have to crawl down from his tariff position.
Okay.
I figured it would happen today. I didn't think it would happen 4 hours after he announced it, right? And I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that sort of thing, because that when the Trade Secretary Ludwig phoned up, it was, you're going to take this off or we're going to destroy you, sort of a conversation. And I think what's disappointing about it is that whether it was Trudeau in power or now Carney assuming the reins, I find it very uncomforting to see premiers beaking off at leisure, not just Ford, but other ones as well, and the Prime Minister not, holding them down. It should be the Prime Minister speaking and the Prime Minister's minister speaking. Doug Ford should not be chatting. He should not be, threatening the United States. I mean, can you imagine what Legault said in his phone conversation with Ford yesterday after Trump announced a 50% tariff on aluminum?
Oh, yeah.
That call went really well.
Yeah, it was probably, Merci, Doug. Merci. Yeah, right. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. But on this idea that you are so offended by how Trump is treating Canada that you are shunning Canadian goods and you're not traveling to the United States. For you, you're kind of status quo on that?
Well, I think, and it's not hard to be status quo. When you got a dollar sitting at 69 cents, I mean, who's anxious to pay, $1.35 for a U.S. dollar and travel down to the States? I mean, I can golf in Kamloops just as easily as I can golf in Arizona, right? So, it's a shame that I can't travel down to the South. But it's not going to break my heart to hold off on the holidays. And I think most Canadians, if you take a hard look at a lot of the stuff that you're buying from the States, I mean, you're going to have to question whether you really need it or not. Unless you're on the marketplace for a new car or something like that, or a big ticket item, I think that it's relatively easy for Canadians to say, I'm just going to buy Canada. So,
all right. Thanks, Bill. Yep. Good to hear from you today. Economic nationalism at the household level. That's our topic for today. What changes have you made because of Donald Trump's treatment of Canada? 1-833-668-2577 to Sylvan Lake. Wade up next. Hi, Wade.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, Wade. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. It's been
That's
a while.
good. Yes, it has. Good to hear from you again. Have you made any changes to the stuff you're buying or planning to buy?
Well, I'm at that age where I don't buy a lot like your last caller. I just food, I guess, is it, and I don't do the shopping. So,
okay.
Personally, but Rob, I used to be a proud Canadian at one time, and now I'm just an embarrassed Canadian because of what's going on with our leadership in this country. However, I'm a very proud Albertan, and hello?
Yeah, we're right here, Wade. Yeah, keep going.
Something happened there. But anyways, I'm a very proud Albertan, and at the beginning of all this tariff things, I think I probably might have said to the U.S., look, you guys do what you need to do, and we'll do what we need to do, and just kind of left it at that. And then we'll see what happens.
Right. But I guess, what I want to get at is if you went to a store, would you look for something made in Canada or even made in Alberta over something, made in the United States?
Well, I've been doing that for years.
You were doing that already.
I have been very staunch in supporting local mom and pop businesses when everybody else was running to Walmart. And,
okay.
So, that's something that I would.
Would you have any qualms about traveling to the U.S. right now?
No, not at all.
Not really, eh?
No. And another thing, in my mind, the West has to get away from the East, one way or another. And I've heard that if we separate from Canada, we have to develop our own currency. Well, we could forego that by
I don't know. I mean,
the American dollar.
That's a conversation. That's a conversation for some other day, maybe way off in the future. I know that's your viewpoint. It's not mine, and it's not really what I want to talk about today.
Yeah, okay.
The separatist movement in Alberta. But thank you, Wade. 1-833-668-2577. We're talking about what you're doing at home in light of Donald Trump's treatment of Canada. Join the discussion here on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's going on in your place? What purchasing decisions, if any, have changed for you since Donald Trump started picking on Canada? Have you made any changes? If you haven't made any changes, why haven't you made any changes? What, are you not on Team Canada? 1-833-668-2577. Join the discussion. Wait, won't be too long at all. Afif is calling us from Waterloo. Well, he usually calls us from Waterloo, but I understand are you in New York right now?
Yeah, I am, actually.
What are you doing in New York? Are you not on Team Canada anymore? You're what are you, part of MAGA now, Afif?
No, I'm just here to meet my brother.
Oh, you're there to be your brother. Okay.
Because
all right.
He's here for residency, so I just came here just to meet him, and
I see. Okay. He's doing his residency. Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah. The situation here is kind of horrible because anytime any person I go to, like any person that my brother shows me to, they're like, "Oh, you're from Canada. Oh my God, welcome to our country. You're not part of us now."
Okay.
We're not
Is it almost like they have sympathy for you, Afif? Like they feel for you? They feel bad for you?
No, they feel like that they want us to be a part of them. Like he's like, oh, like I've seen a couple of them say like, oh, yo, you're gonna be part of us now from now on. I was like, no, we're not. We're gonna be We're gonna be Canada, and we're not gonna be part of you guys anymore. So
Okay.
they kind of
All
want
right.
us to be a part of them, which is horrible.
Now,
Yeah.
in your own personal life, when you go shopping or whatever, have you made changes to the stuff you're buying? Are you looking at labels? Are you trying to buy more made in Canada products? Or
just today, I just bought like 3 or 4 items, and I tried to make sure that I look for the Canadian label. So yeah, I am looking for it now.
Okay, and you never did that before? Never used to think about that before?
Yeah,
That's a new thing for you?
I can't do it, but right before I got here, I did it, and yeah, I found that it's I'd rather have Canadian items than not.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, Afif. Safe travels. Safe trip back. Thanks for the call today. 1-833-668-2577. Rick is in Dartmouth. You're on the air. Rick, what changes have you made, Rick?
Well, first, I'm trying to figure out which tariffs that Trump is putting on Canadian products are going to affect me. I have no idea. I guess aluminum and steel might eventually within a year, but as for right now, I can't see any difference to any prices on anything that Trump has put tariffs on for Canada. However, I can expect definitely a price increase in orange juice, which is something that I buy every 2 weeks. I can expect my jug of orange juice to go up from $6 to $7 to $9 to $10 based on Canadian counter tariffs.
Right. But have you made any changes to the stuff you buy? Are you label shopping, looking for Canadian-made goods?
Look, I disagree completely with this whole
What?
war. Okay,
Why?
thing, all right? I'll tell you why.
Are you not on Team
Because-
Canada, Rick? You're not on Team Canada?
Absolutely on Team Canada. But if someone asks you to marry them, is that not a compliment? Okay? I know he said, a couple of off-the-cuff things about, making us into submission. And in some countries, that's
Right.
the way they do it. But anyway, I see it as a compliment that the United
You see
States...
it as a compliment. Okay.
Well, it's not the
Okay.
first time either. George H.W. Bush kind of blew that
Well,
one
I don't know.
around
I
a few
mean-
times, So anyway, I'm not in any way concerned about
Okay.
any of
Gotcha.
that. Okay?
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Canada could do a lot more. Canada has been taken over, Brett, by Mexican cartels.
Does this administration still consider Canada to be a close ally of the United States?
Well, I think Canada is a neighbor.
Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No. Economic force. They can't come in and steal our money and steal our jobs and take our factories and take our businesses and expect not to be punished. We don't need trees from Canada. We don't need cars from Canada. We don't need energy from Canada. We don't need anything from Canada.
We allow them to make cars. We allow them to take lumber. We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their food products.
Honestly, it's not fair for us to be supporting Canada. And if we don't support them, they don't subsist as a nation. Without us, Canada can't make it.
So given all of that from Donald Trump and all of the people around Donald Trump, what are you doing at home? Economic nationalism at the household level. Our topic of the day here on Talkback at 1-833-668-2577. What buying decisions have changed for you because of Trump's treatment of Canada? Have you made any changes? If you haven't made any changes, why haven't you made any changes? Are you on Team Canada? 1-833-668-2577. Bernie is in Mississauga, Ontario. Hello, Bernie.
Yeah, how you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Bernie. Have you changed anything?
Yeah, we're a lot more selective on what we buy now. Last week we bought some grapes from South Africa instead of from the States, and they were delicious. And we bought something from Spain, some food products, and we try to buy what's locally, what's produced here in Canada, you know. And as far as travel plans or anything, I said the people just travel within inside Canada. There's lots of beautiful places in Canada you can go. And happen. I think this will all come out in the wash at the end when the stock market and everything is tanking. They're losing trillions of dollars. That some will come to the forefront and they'll put it right. I don't think we should be concerned. All right, like I was born in Nova Scotia, but I made my living in Ontario, and I'm a proud Canadian. And no, we don't got to be listening to his try. He's only one man. He's not God or anything like that. He can come down just like anybody else. So, he puts his pants on the same way we put our pants on. He's not a super this or anything like that. He's just a man. He got his own thoughts. And
let me ask you this, Bernie. Would you ever travel to the U.S. as long as he was president?
No, I wouldn't travel to the United States. I got no desire to travel to the States. If I wanted to travel anywhere in the world, I'd like to go, if there was peace, I'd like to go to the Middle East because of the religious story there. So that's where I'd like to travel. But as far as desire to go to the States, no. And I think until people in the States start speaking up and what he's trying to blindfold Canada, I got no desire to go there.
All right. Thank you, Bernie. Good to hear from you today. 1-833-668-2577. Keith is in Ottawa today. Hello, Keith. Hi, Keith.
Hello.
Hi, Keith. Are you making any changes at home because of the Trump threats?
I need a new dishwasher soon, and I was thinking of getting the German one. That's the most popular one, but then I saw where they manufacture those in Tennessee. So if we do counter tariffs, will that affect that sort of, you know?
Right. Yeah.
The point I wanted to bring up, and I've heard Professor Lee talk about this, is we got to be very careful about putting counter tariffs on because, first of all, it's going to be harder on us to pay for this. But the Washington Post had an article, Jack, on January 16th, and they said the best way to do that is not with counter tariffs, but reduce our tariffs on other countries. Like I see we're putting tariffs on Chinese electric cars. Maybe we should wouldn't that hurt Tesla if we were to open up our market and say, look, we have electric cars, let's open up our market to the Chinese electric cars. That's the way that's the way to fight the US on this. I don't think
Well, I mean, it's not like China is being,
China either, but I mean,
you know,
you got.
But I mean, China has imposed all kinds of, that's a good point you raised, Keith. I mean, what China is doing to our farmers in the West, what they're doing, they just slapped tariffs on $1 billion worth of seafood in Atlantic Canada. China's no better.
Exactly. That's because we put tariffs on them. So I'm just saying, maybe we should open that up and trade. We've got to trade with other countries. Obviously, we can't rely on the United States. And there should be somebody, instead of going down to Washington so much, we should have people over in Europe and having agreements over there. Like, that idiot down in the States there, the president down there, I mean, he's got his mind made up. He wants to defeat our economy. The only way we'll do that is trade with other people.
Okay. Thank you, Keith. Good to hear from you today. Appreciate the call. Tyler is in Calgary, calling from Calgary. Hi, Tyler. Are you making any changes at home because of Donald Trump's treatment of Canada?
Hey, Rob. I mean, marginally from what I can see, and that's nothing, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just I find that, I spend enough time trying to figure out what's going on these days that if I got to spend an extra, 30 minutes in the grocery store just to make sure I'm buying Canadian stuff, it's really challenging. I guess the point that I wanted to bring up is that I find it very interesting that, Donald Trump's been in power for, 2-3 weeks now. He's done a better job of bringing this country together than our leadership has over the course of the last, 9 years. And so there becomes a point in time where I feel like we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and go, well, what kind of neighbors are we? What are we doing to strengthen ourselves? Instead of kind of going, well, what are they doing to us? It's if it's a personal thing, a lot of people would refer to it as a victim type of mentality.
Okay, that's interesting.
We kind of got ourselves here, and we allowed our leadership to get us here. We got to really just hunker down to get ourselves out. But we got to look at ourselves in the mirror. That's how I feel about it, at least.
All right. I thank you for expressing your opinion on Talkback. That's what it's all about. I'm Rob Snow. Phone lines are open. Plenty of time to take your call before the top of the hour. So join the discussion at 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What are you doing at your place? That's our topic of the day. What purchasing decisions have changed for you because of Donald Trump's treatment of Canada, his obsession, it seems, with Canada? Have you made any changes? If you haven't made any changes, why not? What's behind that decision? 1-833-668-2577. Wade in Nova Scotia. Thanks for calling, Wade. Go ahead, Wade.
Yes, good day. How you doing?
I'm good, Wade. How are you?
Greetings from Nova Scotia.
Well, thank you. Great to hear from you today. You made any changes at home?
Not really. I've been flying a Canadian flag in our yard probably for the last 10 years or more, and my wife and I will be 70 this year. We don't really go anywhere. We pretty well try to buy local at farm markets for the last number of years. We grow a lot of our own stuff. We grow our own microgreens and sprouts in the house all winter. We buy all organic food if possible. And I'll tell you, I can't agree more with the last caller you had on there. Because we are crying victim, and we have to take a deep breath and not do stuff out of anger. Like, when Trump puts tariffs on us, that raises prices for his people and companies in the U.S.
Yes.
Now, their government puts a retaliatory tariff on U.S. products. That raises prices for us. I was watching Business News this morning, and they dropped their interest rate by another 1/4 point because of this stuff. But
yes, they did.
What that will do, that will raise our prices, which will raise inflation, which will cause the Bank of Canada to raise interest rates because of that. And how in the heck is that going to help us? And one other thing I'd like to say, this is my opinion only. I don't belong to any political party. I have voted for the Liberals in the last 2 federal elections, but they couldn't drag me to the polls to vote for them this time. And I'll tell you why.
All right. Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure thing.
Okay. Who would you say is the person that's the biggest threat to Canada's sovereignty? As you see
right now, I would say it's Donald Trump right now.
I have to disagree with you.
That's fair enough. Who is it?
I would say it's going to be Mark Carney.
Why would you say that?
I did a lot of research on him. He is 100% to the bone against fossil fuels. Now, if he gets in to be prime minister and he goes after the fossil fuel industry like even worse than what Trudeau did, do you think that Alberta and Saskatchewan are going to stand for that? What my fear is, sir, is if that happens, because he wants to eliminate fossil fuels if he can get the chance, and Alberta and Saskatchewan could fall right flat in Donald Trump's arms, because he doesn't want all of Canada. He just wants the parts that's going to be good for him, and that's Alberta, which has the oil, natural gas. Saskatchewan has oil, natural gas. They have uranium, and they have potash. Now, what else could a man want?
What else could a man want? Okay. Interesting points, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Wade.
Okay.
Yeah, good to hear from you. Okay. Yep. Jeff up next from Calgary. Hello, Jeff.
Yeah, hey, how's it going? Love the show.
Thank you, Jeff. Very kind of you. You made any changes at your place on what you're buying, where you're going, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, 100%. Like it's
You have?
impacted our
Okay.
family quite a bit. We've got 2 little kids at home, and needless to say, our grocery bill is pretty high each month, probably around $1,500. So we're pretty conscientious about what we're buying. But since Trump has taken power in the last couple of weeks, we've not only tried to make a difference in what we're buying at the grocery store to keep it Canadian, but we've also canceled trips. We were supposed to go to Hawaii later this year. We've canceled that, and now we're going to Mexico. So we're trying to do our part to Canada. We're in no way, shape, or form does this change our loyalty to the country. I think the previous gentleman who called in said it best, where I think Trump has done a good job of strengthening our patriotism, and so
would seem so.
It seems like we're very conscious about what we get at the grocery store, and until things change, we're probably gonna continue trying to buy Canadian. Won't be visiting the States, which is unfortunate because we love going to Arizona and Hawaii and California and Florida and stuff like that. But we'll just have to keep it local. We have no problem doing that. It's just a shame that this is all happening. Our loyalty is to Canada, and we're gonna try and support our country as best as we can throughout this.
All right, Jeff, thank you for your call today. 1-833-668-2577. Stop here. And we'll be back. If you're on the line, you'll be on the air before the top of the hour. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback on News Radio.